The Office of the Parliament celebrates International Women's Day 2022. Gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow.
I think that gender equality isn't really, to me, really about gender equality. It's more about, it seems like we have this package of what somebody's supposed to be, and everybody's supposed to fit into that, you know. So I don't think it's necessarily about gender equality. I think it's more about fitting into social constructs that have been created. I do think that there's lots of ways in which women have definitely achieved a lot more advancement, a lot more respect. You know, it's a cycle in a way, because you find that there are some areas that women are highly respected, but then you have areas where they're not, and also it's so layered, you know, because women who are respected, again, you know, fit into this kind of construct of what a successful woman who's supposed to be respected is supposed to be. But, you know, respect is supposed to be for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. You know, it's about empathy and compassion for human life, and a recognition that we are all in this together, and a community type of spirit that nurtures rather than puts somebody on a pedestal and another person not, because this person is successful and they have a degree and they know they have it all together, and then this person is struggling. But maybe this person is struggling because of the hand that they've been dealt, you know. So yes, I would say that there definitely have been some ways that women have, you know, definitely moved up in terms of gender equality. And of course, we know that gender is also a construct, so even that is kind of complicated. And so that's why I want to say that I think it's about human connections and respecting each other. A lot of my art is about recognition of the mundaneness in society, meaning those everyday moments, the ordinary moments of life that we all have, that we all witness, but are taken for granted because it's not special. And a lot of my art tries to focus on making these things special, because they are, because it's what makes us human. In terms of for women, I try to highlight, I guess, how women have progressed. So for example, if I'm, you know, when I paint, because I do a lot of cultural things as well too, so, you know, if I'm painting pan, for example, there was a time when women weren't frontlining pan, you know, they were the base. Now you see a lot more women frontlining, they're the tenors or whatever. So I tend to look for those kinds or paint, I should say, those kinds of images. Some of my work has also been highlighting women in the past who, you know, so like I have a piece on Elma Francois, you know, and or Claudia Jones, or you know, I'm just exploring a lot of women who their names are there but not really, you know, like, so for example, Elma Francois, everybody knows about Uriah Butler, you know, Rienzi, but do you know about Elma Francois? You know, but she did so much, and she was there right alongside, you know, and the list is endless of these women who did things, and even, you know, like what this series pays homage to is even women who just survived, because really and truly, a lot of our ancestors came here by force, and a lot of them came by force via other islands, and, you know, just the fact that they survived and they sometimes flourished, and that we are here because of them, to me is also what needs to be highlighted. You know, we need to recognize that, because these are the things that are silent in history. And I feel like if we're talking about equality, that we need to identify that it didn't just start yesterday or the day before. You know, this is years and years and years of women who have you know, withstood the test of time. You know, the art world is very cliquish. It's a lot about who you know and who you are. So there are definitely some women who have been able to be very successful as artists. But by and large, if I were to ask you right now to name 5 Trinidadian artists, most of them would probably be men, you know? And what does that say? And then even if you knew some female artists, it would probably be the same ones that you hear about all the time. And so I think for women in general, and this is not just in Trinidad, specifically around the world, you hear about female artists, but you hear about male artists a lot more. And you hear about male artists in terms of them being master artists, master craftsmen, you know, genius artists. And women, not so much. You don't really hear about them being like that. In fact, a lot of times you hear about it almost like if it's a hobby, you know, not to be taken seriously, something that they're just doing on the side, that sort of thing. So I don't think that we are anywhere near the equality for female artists as they are for male, especially also a lot of what women make in art is seen as craft. And that construct of what is worth more than something else. You know, all of that is male dominated. It comes from a patriarchal structure of a certain type of art being worth more than something else. And generally speaking, you know, the kind of art that women have made through the ages has been deemed craft and therefore not valued as much. And so all of these kinds of problems we still encounter. I'm not saying that it's doom and gloom. I'm not saying that there isn't, you know, awakenings happening and people recognizing that and conversations happening. Definitely there are. But if you are asking me about the challenges, then that's, you know, so we do have a ways to go. But I think that technology, I think, has helped a lot, you know, because, you know, you can put yourself out there. You don't have to wait on a gallery, you know. And so those types of things, I think, are helping. And I think more conversations are happening. So I think that's also good. So I'm hopeful. I think that you know, that things will change, but it's a work in progress. Women in the Caribbean have always worked. So, you know, we have this understanding of history that's quite specific to our class, right? And specific, or it's actually kind of Euro-American. Because let's face it, most of our foremothers worked. Either they worked on the plantation, or as domestics, or as some other capacity like that. They never didn't work, you know, because they were brought to the Caribbean to work. They weren't brought to the Caribbean to sit pretty in a house unless you were from a certain socioeconomic standing. And so if we're talking about the housewives of the plantocracy or the mercantile classes, well, yes, definitely for them, their gender roles have changed because yes, they have won, as you say, won the right to vote, won the right to, you know, be hired in professions and come out of the house. The domestic sphere is no longer there for them. I mean, well, it's a choice, I should say. But for women of color, they've always had to work. So there are a couple things I think that are still problematic. In the fight to gain respect, I think a lot of that fight to gain respect is based on monetary value and not on respect in terms of humanity. And I'll give you an example. So now we kind of frown upon women who choose to stay home with their kids. One of the most important things that you can do, we know a lot of the ills of society is based on absentee parentism. Yet, you frown upon people, or women, I should say, who make the choice to stay home, to be with their kids. There's no value attached to doing that. They don't get a salary, you know, yet they're doing all these jobs because they're looking after. I mean, if you had to hire somebody to look after your kids, to cook, to be the taxi driver, that's a lot of money. But somebody who chooses to stay home with their kids doesn't get that kind of value. And I think that's still something that is a big thing, because I think the constructs that we live in with this society is that it's either all or nothing. You know, the balance is lacking. So I think in terms of the new issues, I say it's the same but different, because it's still about balance. It's still about a recognition that we don't all have to be superwoman. We don't all have to want to strive to be, you know, it's okay to just be you, you know, and whatever that is. It's okay to be you and to be true to that, and that the society that we live in recognize that and embrace that and nurture that. To me, breaking the bias means an acceptance of different women in different capacities, doing different things, and a recognition that one isn't better than the other just because somebody says so. Who says so? Why are they saying so? You know, I think those are the things that we need to look at. Why? Why are we valuing this more than that? And I think when we really start to question that, and we really start to recognize where a lot of our trauma comes from, then I think we could really, you know, have a society that is, we don't even have to say gender, you know, just human-centric.
The Office of the Parliament celebrates International Women's Day 2022. Gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow.